feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Pinnacle baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. You can download that. It's free, and you can watch and listen to our program daily in its entirety across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB, and at Darren Goldwater, 843-321-8893. That is our phone number. It is also our text line, and it is available for all of you to be a part of what we do here between 12 and 2 o'clock today. We've got JC Shurburtt for an hour, 12:30 to 1:30. And then at 1:30 this afternoon, we will speak with a great friend of mine. He's become a wonderful friend. I helped him on his podcast, actually, in the fall, the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast, do a special show every week for Carolina football. Keith Allsep will join us today at 1:30 as part one of a 10-part mini-series. It's time for Carolina football. And speaking of that, you can head to our website, jbandgoldwatershow.com, and purchase things like these.
Yeah, nice shirt.
It's T-shirts and all types of stuff for South Carolina football. It's also brought to you by the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast, one of what I would call a partner. Darren and I deal in partnerships, certainly, and we consider Keith a friend and a partner. So that's coming up at 1:30 today. We'll get into the MLB stuff. Some pitchers last night a little frustrated with being checked, like Max Scherzer, and I don't blame him. We'll get into some hoops. We got some hoops news to get to today as well. College World Series was brilliant once again last night. It's a full day, Darren. Good afternoon. I do, though, as I kind of bring you in, I've got to tell you what's been going on at my house for the last 30 minutes.
Oh, really? That's an interesting way to start. That's way more interesting than anything I was about to say.
Dude, things like this, you know, if you're one of those type people where you feel like these things only happen to me.
Uh-huh.
Well, this is one of those stories. I generally somewhere between 11 and 11:30. Darren and I have home studios. And so I walk downstairs to grab just a small bite to eat. I don't eat a whole lot for lunch ever. Small little snack. And then to walk outside, grab the mail, bring the trash is Wednesday here. Bring the trash can in. That's what I do on Wednesdays.
You've had an adventurous start to the day already.
Yeah. Well, so I walk out, I walk outside, I grab the mail, and I turn around to walk to get my trash can, and my trash can's gone.
Oh.
And I thought, well, I know I took it out. I had to take it out, right? I know I took it out this morning. So I walk back up the driveway. Yeah, trash can's not there. I knew I put it on the street. Trash can's gone. So I'm walking, kind of looking around the street. Can't find my trash can. I see my neighbor Blake across the street. Actually, give a shout out to Blake's family. He is Sonia Stevens' brother.
Hey.
And the famous Sonia Stevens at Channel 4. So I said, Blake, he's out there working on one of his 18 trucks that he has. And I said, have you seen my trash can? And he just laughed at me. So we're walking up and down driveways. I know all my neighbors. If any of them came outside, they'd probably call the police. And we're literally looking in trash cans, trying to figure out, well, maybe this one looks like, no, this one doesn't look like mine. Did somebody grab my, we asked another neighbor. We had two neighbors checking their video cameras. Couldn't figure it out. I had to get back in because I had to come up here and get ready to go. And then my doorbell rings. I go back downstairs. It's one of my other neighbors across the street. She says, "Hey, you got to come out here. Go down the street." And there's this truck with a trailer with a bunch of trash cans on the back. And I said,
"They're stealing trash cans."
I said, "What the hell? Somebody's stealing trash cans." So I ran down there and I grabbed him and I said, "Hey, man, did you take my trash can?" He goes, "Well, I'm replacing trash cans." And I said, did somebody ask you to replace my trash can? My trash can has been missing. We didn't need a new trash can. And he said, "Well, no, but the trash truck must have dumped yours in their truck." So apparently this happens often. He had about 15 trash cans on this trailer, and he's just driving around town replacing people's trash cans, which the truck throws in the truck bed somehow. I didn't even know that was possible.
I thought that was part of its little clamp there on the side. It just dumps it, and then you put it back down. Hey, I guess it's better to have a lost trash can than a stolen catalytic converter from your car at a dealership.
That's true. Yeah, you have bigger problems than I have.
Yeah, I'm getting my car back today. Yeah.
First world problems.
And thanks, dude or dudes, whoever stole my catalytic converter.
Yeah, I hope that got you far. Yeah, well, thanks to the guy that dumped my trash can. So, again, first world problems. I know we're just a bunch of spoiled, rotten human beings, but if you ever walk outside and your trash can is missing, it probably slipped off the trash claw. So give the maintenance department a shout in your city. I couldn't believe how many. I said, "You have to replace all these?" He's like, "Yeah." I thought, well, that guy needs to be fired. Whoever's dumping trash cans into the truck.
This dude just every day, his job is to follow the trash truck and replace trash cans that the trash truck eats.
Dude, I don't know. I didn't even get any more into it. I was just done with it. I was just done.
Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, it just threw a whole kink in my day, but it's all good now. We're on the air. So hope everybody enjoyed some trash to open our program with. 843-321-8893 again is our phone number, and it is also our text line. Let's go ahead and just start with what happened last night at the College World Series. 8-4, Texas eliminates Tennessee yesterday afternoon. The Vols, the first SEC program to head home. Mississippi State was on the ropes. Griff McGarry was beyond brilliant with a no-hitter into the 8th inning. And then he comes out of the ball game, and the Wahoos of Virginia fall apart. Tanner Allen hit a go-ahead home run, and Mississippi State hangs on to win 6-5. It was a brilliant baseball game, folks. If you missed it, it was a blast. It was what this sport is all about. It was Omaha to a T. I mean, it was sweet. And Tanner Allen's a hell of an interview. I mean, he's just a good old Southern boy from Alabama, and he was really fun to listen to. But, sometimes it might, I don't know how it's going to work out, but sometimes it might just be your year. And Mississippi State, they're one of those teams this year. They've had a lot going for them, and they certainly did last night.
I think what hurt Virginia the most is the fact that they had that no-hitter going into the 8th. He was losing it. I was texting with a buddy throughout this. I had a great night, right? I had the Nationals on the big screen. I have College World Series right there in front of me, so I'm watching both. And I'm texting with him as this situation's evolving. And I'm saying they've got a decision to make. O'Connor, Virginia's coach, has a decision here because he can't ride this out. But at the same time, how do you pull a kid with a no-hitter in the College World Series? It hasn't happened in like 60 years, so you can't go get him, but he's obviously losing his stuff. 2 batters later was the home run. Then he comes out. The unraveling had already begun, and you want to talk about a horseshoe up there, maybe it's Mississippi State that has it.
Yeah, it was and Mississippi State threw like 8 arms in the game.
I was thinking about that too, with Lemonis just trudging back and forth and no apparent hurry every time he went out there. And I'm thinking, I wonder what's inside his head. How's he managing this game without a hit and about to get sent into the loser's bracket here? And then maybe that's his mentality that turned it around.
Yeah, I mean, they threw. I just counted. It was 8. I knew it was 8 or 9. So they had 8 guys that they ran out there. Christian McLeod, who started, didn't have a good day. And that's where, Virginia really jumped all over him. You thought, man, golly, how about these teams representing the ACC? This is something. Still is something. I'm not taking anything away. I mean, it's really a fantastic story, both those programs. But you could tell that, from there he was kind of playing his cards. Lemonis was. It was like, all right, let's try to preserve arms. So let's keep their pitch counts down. Let's kind of work some matchups throughout the game. Let's kind of have a feel for it where we can. And I say Lemo and Scott Foxhall combined in those decisions. Proud Charleston guys. And it worked out. And you could also sense too, and they said it as much after the game, it was like, look, man, it's just one of those days for McGarry. I mean, he was just having a day. I know that ball left the yard, and that was tough to see for a dude who was throwing a no-hitter. It's the only hit he gave up. So, at that point in time, you're kind of, man, this kid, I'm kind of pulling for him to throw a no-hitter in the College World Series. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is baseball glory. But at the same time, you could sense it from State's side. I mean, literally the top popped off immediately, especially when he came out of the game. They kind of had to wait him out. And let's see if we get lucky on one swing. They did. They get him out of there, and then they turned on the Jets from there, and they were able to pull it out.
And UVA did what they've done, right? When they had their hand forced, they went to their closer, their stud, Mr. Dippin' Dots, and he didn't have it. I mean, and that's just sorry for the cliche. Sometimes that's the way baseball is. You take a no-hitter into the 8th. You follow the script you followed all year long, particularly in the back half of the season when you've been awesome, and then your script blows up in your face. It's one of those. It's a loss that will be very tough for Virginia to overcome tomorrow.
That's a great point. You'd like to think that, well, they're in the College World Series, flush it and move on because it's do or die. But losses like that sometimes can linger. However, Virginia's had their backs against the wall in every postseason series they've played, and look where they are. So it's not anything that they're not used to, but they will get Texas on Thursday night. What's interesting about this, I don't think that they will see Ty Madden. I don't think they will. I mean, he pitched Sunday for the Longhorns.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about almost 4 days rest for Ty Madden. I'm actually, forgive me while I look off screen here, I'm trying to find his pitch count, and I'm not able to find it at this point in time. I'll have to go back and really kind of look. But I think it was up. Well, I think it was over 100. So I don't think they'll see him. I don't think they'll see Ty Madden. So I don't know who Texas is planning on throwing, but Virginia more than likely won't see their ace tomorrow night.
And same story for Texas. Odds are they're not going to see Abbott. I mean, it's possible. It's possible either team could come back, but you're kind of in a situation where, yes, you need to win one game to even stay alive, but you're going to need someone tomorrow too. Or if the game is tomorrow, so they'll need someone on Saturday, I believe. So either way, I mean, you probably want your ace there and give them a little bit more rest. But it's a decision that that both coaches are going to have. And to that point, when Lemonis went to Sims with 2 outs in the 8th, I texted someone else. I may have even texted you. And I said, this is the Citadel coming out in Lemo. He's got a guy. He's got a horse. And he's going to ride him. He threw 50 pitches 2 days ago. He's coming in for 4 outs here. And any more time that Lemo needs him and Mississippi State needs Sims, they're going right back to him as this thing goes along. That's kind of the old school Citadel way, too.
Yeah, it is. They're one of the programs. There's a few programs years and years ago that kind of went to that model. The Citadel certainly was one of them. And I can only really reference programs that are generally in our area. Scott Barber at South Carolina was one of those guys. And Ray Tanner, the best teams that the Gamecocks ever had were teams that they had legitimate closers, period, at the end. 02, 03, 04, Omaha teams, closers. 10, 11, 12, guess what? They had a guy named Matt Price. I mean, so but the Citadel, you're right. They would go to the guy, they'd go to their dude early and they'd ride him. And there's other programs that would do that. There's some who wouldn't. And then there's some like this year that we've seen where it kind of blew up in their face a little bit. I thought that, and there's the note from Darren, Madden threw 105 pitches on Sundays. I just don't think he'll go tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we've seen this, we saw it in the Supers. I thought, as much as I respect Dave Van Horn, he's one of the best coaches in college baseball. And Cops threw well, but I wasn't a big fan of starting him. I was more a fan of go to him early if you need to, but don't start him. I mean, Ole Miss, I think they started their closer, and I know someone might chime in and say, "Well, South Carolina started their closer." Well, no, not really. Yes, true, but also not true. Brett Carey at one time was a starter. He was the closer for the Gamecocks, and then they moved him into the starting rotation with a couple of weekends left in the regular season. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't anything new in the postseason with your back against the wall for Brett Carey. So I'm not a fan of those type situations, but what Limo did, and he didn't even go to him too early. Like, I think he went to him right at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know you're going to be able to come in and pump some pills right down their throat, and we'll be able to get out of here and survive. And they did. Mississippi State is really good, man, and this is 3 straight years in Omaha, and the heart and soul of that team has been all 3 years. That really means something this time of the season.
And dude, Lemo, second trip there in 2 years, basically. It's wild what he's done. It's wild what the program has become, and it's probably not a coincidence that with a rabid fan base and then a facility that is basically unrivaled in college baseball. Now they're rolling, right? And they have that feel. If you're no hit, no runs, back against the wall, for all intents and purposes, dead to rights in the 8th, you come back and win that game, there's a good feel around there. So you basically have the two teams that feel like they have that horseshoe or that 4-leaf clover. They're the two that are in the winner's bracket at 2-0 right now.
Yeah, absolutely. The College World Series, again, if you haven't been watching it closely, I don't know what you're waiting on in sports. I mean, this event is so good. It is so good. You've got to check it out. Tonight you have an opportunity at 7 o'clock on ESPN. Vanderbilt and Stanford, although you won't see either Kumar Rocker or Jack Leiter for the Commodores, or as they used to be referred to back in the day, the Commodores. I'm just kidding. But that'll be a battle of brains tonight between the Cardinal and the Commodores on ESPN. Texas and Virginia tomorrow night at 7 o'clock on ESPN2, and then the winners await the weekend on Friday. Scott, I just saw a comment there from Scott. He said, I went last night just to watch a game, and man, was I so happy I did. Go Bulldogs. If he was at the ball game last night, give us, tell us what it was like. The atmosphere, I know, is magical in Omaha, and I think there was, once again, 20,000 plus there for that game. It's been really just amazing to see, especially coming out of COVID. Scott, give us some more information. Tell us what your experience was like last night in Omaha, if that's what you're referencing, that you were actually at the game. But what a great game to be a part of in the middle of America. All right, again, 843-721, but 721, 843-321. Yeah. That goes in the trash. 843-321-8893 is our phone number, 321-8893. How about that? In Major League Baseball last night, we saw frustration boiling over with Max Scherzer, with I believe Sergio Romo also was checked, and he didn't like it. He pulled the Scherzer where he attempted to pull his pants off in the middle of the field. But the Scherzer incident is what is getting more press today in play, and it should be. And there's probably a few different ways to look at it. So the rules are that these checks are random by the umpires. Can be more than once. More than likely, it won't be more than twice, but it could be. Last night it was 3 times for Max Scherzer. And if you are an opposing manager and you feel like something is off, there's a way to justify asking them to go out and check again. However, in good faith, as Darren texted me this morning, if you're doing it for any other reason, to slow the game down, to play mind games, that gamesmanship that we like to call sometimes, you can be ejected from the game for that. Joe Girardi was ejected from the game last night in the ball game. He is, of course, the manager for the Phillies. Max Scherzer was not happy, shouting from the dugout. I feel like we'll see more of this, Darren.
So a lot of layers. I was watching the entire thing. I was watching from start to finish, and the pitchers who went last night had the advantage of knowing what each pitcher was going to, how they're going to be scrutinized because of Monday night's game. You saw them after the first inning. As you're walking off, they're going to check your hat. They're going to check your belt. They're going to check your glove. So Scherzer clearly was not happy at the end of the first inning when he walks right over to him, takes his hat off, flips his belt over, and basically was like, I got nothing here.
Mm-hmm.
Then it happens again in the third, and that went largely unnoticed by television broadcast because it's not in the middle of the game. It's when teams are walking off of the field. The fourth inning comes, and that's when Girardi's incident happened that got a whole lot of play. And when you want to talk about good faith, Girardi took some steps in the dugout, chest out, walking at Max. He wasn't ejected, Girardi, for that. He was ejected the following inning when Scherzer struck out Real Muto and offered in a kind gesture his hat and his glove to Girardi in the Phillies dugout. Girardi didn't like that, and that's eventually what led to him getting ejected from the game. And Mike Rizzo, the Nationals general manager, was not mincing words at all this morning on his weekly spot on DC radio. And he was calling it an awful move by Girardi, who's a guy as described by Dan Patrick. It's a guy with like a football mentality in a baseball game. He is much more confrontational. And it was pretty evident last night that all he was doing was trying to get under Max Scherzer's skin. And if you can do that and convince the umps that this is in good faith because I've never seen him touch his hair, then you are going to see that a lot more. And this will become a major problem. I also want to slide one other thing in. Pitchers know exactly where the umps are looking. It's pretty easy for them to hide stuff right now if they wanted to, but spin rates, as Travis Sawchik, who's been in this area now, I think he's with the Score, they've dramatically been going down ever since this announcement came out in early June.
Well, and it's significant. When you say you said dramatically, like, let's not understate that. It's a lot, and so I know, Darren, that pitchers are frustrated. I get it. I really do. And who was it? Corey McCartney that we talked to last week who said, look, is this something that probably needed to be done? Yeah, that's fair. Yes, it's right in the middle of the year. Now, that's not saying that just because it's in the middle of the year that baseball shouldn't do something or anything like that. But you just have to understand that as you implement this, there's going to be some frustration that boils over. And then there's also going to be situations like maybe we saw last night with Joe Girardi, where you're going to try to bend the rules a little bit. You're going to test your boundaries. You're going to see what you can and can't get away with out there. And when you got a guy like Max Scherzer on the bump, if you feel like you can finagle that without being ejected from the game, why not?
And Max has been implicated, and he's pretty much admitted that, yes, he's used stuff, nothing to the extent of spider tack, which he has, again, admittedly said that stuff's got to go. But all he had last night was rosin. And because of the atmosphere, he said, I just needed a little bit more on my hands. And he referenced his pitch to Alec Bohm, which was a 95-mile-an-hour pitch at his face, basically, because according to Scherzer, it slipped. And in his post-game presser, Scherzer said, what do you want? Does Bohm want 95 at his face, or does he want me to have a little bit more control? So you're going to hear that refrain from pitchers as this goes along. But it's a bad look right now for baseball. I don't know if they're going to catch anyone. I thought they would, but now after seeing it the last 2 days, I don't know if someone's going to have something on them, if it'll be mistaken and someone gets ejected, or if this frustration will just continue to boil over with pitchers knowing that they can get away with their acts of frustration right then and there, basically stripping down on the field.
Yeah, it is certainly it's one of the more bizarre eras or times I can remember in Major League Baseball. I mean, I just don't know of a time that I ever thought we would see anything like this, for that matter. And I mean, yes, there's always been ejections for cheating in the middle of a game or something like that, but they are blatantly looking for cheating, and right smack dab in the middle of the game. Timeout. We're going to come out there and check you. I mean, out of nowhere. I don't know. I don't think there's going to be a ton of ejections for foreign substances because nobody's going to want to give up the paychecks and things like that. and nobody's going to want to miss 10 days. There might be one here and there, and like I said before, I think those will probably end up actually coming a little bit later down the line because, well, I haven't been checked in a little while. You know, maybe I can kind of slip by them. Maybe they come up with something new, whatever. I don't know. I don't know what it will be. I didn't think it would be this immediate, but what I personally did not anticipate was what the frustrations might look like from the players, from the managers. Yeah. And, hey, look, kind of to slide off that topic, umpiring right now is really, it's really interesting. If I'm an umpire, I'm probably asking for more money at all levels. Like you saw in the college game last night, multiple times that the game was stopped for review and for discussion and things like that. You saw in that Tennessee game yesterday, that umpire, which this guy should not be given more money, just walks down and throws the damn assistant coach out for Tennessee, literally over nothing. And, you don't ever want to see that. There's so much to discuss with umpiring, how they're trained and what they're trained to look for. You've got replay. The kid from Mississippi State, I guess it was Rowdy Jordan, got hit on the arm yesterday. And it took them 5 minutes to talk about it before they decided he was awarded first base. And then they went and looked at replay after that. You know what I mean? So, like, this game is so different with technology and ways to figure – because of technology, they're figuring out all this foreign substance stuff. They're able to actually see it. Darren, it's all changed. And I know that we're all a little bit frustrated by it. But you will just have to kind of give it some time and hopefully – training continues with umpires and they're able to better handle some of these situations as well. I feel bad for some of them.
And if you looked at last night in big league baseball, it's not just the pitchers who are frustrated. The umpires don't really want a part of this. They're going out and almost putting their hands up like, sorry, man, like, I have to do this. And it's just it's a really bad look. Are they really going to be able to enforce it? Like when Sergio Romo dropped his pants, I don't know if they were in Oakland or if Oakland was on the road, but it's not like he got checked. He throws off his belt, he drops his pants, and the ump's like, dude, sorry, okay, and just moved him along. They're not equipped to handle this. So that's why I don't know, A, if we'll see something, and B, my guess now after seeing this for 2 days the first guy who gets thrown out is going to have a very loud argument, whether it's good or bad, very loud argument that he got thrown out for rosin and nothing else.
Yeah, I agree. It is an interesting time, no doubt about it, and everything's caught on camera. Yeah. We know about it all. DB's Cheesesteaks is where you can go fill up that belly today. What a beautiful day in June. Mm-hmm. It's just not hot. This is it's an interesting time of the year with weather. Generally, we're scorching when we walk outside. So if you're feeling full or wanting to be full, you need to head to dbscheesesteaks.com and check out their entire menu. Don't forget the boardwalk fries with whatever you order. Those come with the Old Bay seasoning. If you're in the West Ashley area, the Johns Island, James Island, downtown area, wherever, all the delivery apps that are available to you, they're on them. They'll drop it off right at your doorstep, dbscheesesteaks.com. Charleston's choice, numero uno, number one cheesesteak in the Low Country for the last 2 years by the Charleston City paper. We have a couple of number ones on our agenda today. J.C. Shurburtt is up next, and then at 1:30 today, part one of a 10-part miniseries right here on the JB and Goldwater show. It's time for Carolina football. We'll be joined each week by Keith Allsep. He hosts the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. He is a historian of South Carolina football, past, present, and future. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll have some different conversations as well, not just about personnel and things like that for those that have heard it over and over again. So I hope that you'll stick around for that coming up in about an hour. But coming up in about 2 minutes, we fly to Chicago, Illinois, and that's where JC, owner of thebigspur.com, joins us right here on the JB and Goldwater show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with zero down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump?
Strike two.
If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with zero down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to BCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes Dub.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right. Local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All three locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like a game day burger every Wednesday, rib night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
Your online radio, the new online radio that makes you happy.
I got honey beat on my screen door. I got a little buzz in my head. So
Cause he come from a long line of sinners like me.
And you were listening to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
Don't cry for me when I'm gone. Just put a quarter in the jukebox.
Come on, JC. I've taught my daughters how to fist pump. Do I need to teach you as well?
I probably need some, refresher course or two on it. So, maybe that's it. I'm trying to position myself a little better on the camera. So I've got my hands sort of, one on one knee and one on the counter here to make sure that I have a better shot. Right.
We can see you. So good job.
All right. So.
That's
why there was no fist pump. So
I go with the regular head nod. That's pretty much the extent of my dancing.
Oh, well, hopefully nobody recognizes me in Greenville coming up in December, because if that makes the social media rounds, Darren, you'll be it'll be the Goldwater Show moving forward.
The Goldwater Show.
it'll be the Goldfinger.
Fancy. Yeah, it's like the Goldwater Hour. Hello, welcome to the Goldwater Hour. I'm Darren Goldwater.
Yeah. Power Hour with Darren Goldwater.
It's like one of those PBS history things, the Goldwater Hour. Oh, yes. Back when I was serving with Nixon in the 70s. And then that's I'm just commenting on your last name, Darren. I think it's very distinct.
So it's okay.
Of course, so is Bradford. I mean, Bradford's very distinct. Hello, I'm Mr. Bradford. You guys have a nice set of last names there.
So is Shurburtt. You're the only Shurburtt I know.
Yeah, I mean, we can eat that.
It's no, because it's not spelled that way. It's spelled the German spelling with U's and T's and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So I wouldn't eat. I mean, I don't really know what Shurburtt with a U and two T's is exactly. So I probably wouldn't eat it. It's probably some sort of Wiener Schnitzel and sauerkraut or something like that from the old country in Bavaria or something. So Bavaria. Bavaria, is that how you say Bavaria? Anyway,
I think it's Bavaria. I don't know.
I think it's Bavaria, and I really just messed that up. So anyway.
My head is still in knots from the damn trash guy dumping my whole can into the back of his truck today. So, I mean, these things only happen to me. But moving on. JC, let's get to a couple of things here. Of course, owner of thebigspur.com. We have a brand new commitment to South Carolina football. I mean, literally within moments, it has happened. Shane Beamer has tweeted about it. But I do not believe that we know anything about this individual just yet, correct?
No, and it's probably somebody that we do know about in terms of we know who he is as a player without, knowing who's going to announce. I mean, these things, it's a little different than with Muschamp where he would tweet Spurs up and then right after that you get an announcement or something like that. Beamer sometimes will tweet the welcome home and, it's about a week, a week. Last week, a week passed. So these kids take their own time. And I think Shane has a different schedule as far as when he does it than Muschamp. But we are looking out for who the commitment is. I don't think it's Kayron Prunty simply because he said he was going to announce Saturday, unless that's a prelude to an announcement Saturday where they do get Kayron Prunty, which would be gigantic, I think, for the defense's prospects this season at South Carolina.
You say gigantic, like gigantic as he steps in and starts for South Carolina?
He is a freshman All-American from the University of Kansas, or Kansas University, as they call it. And we know how awful they were last year. He was like the shining bright spot, did not give up a touchdown at corner last season. And I think that's pretty hard to do at Kansas and in the Big 12 in that league where it's just bombs away all the time. He's from Virginia originally, I think Petersburg. So obviously Beamer's name goes a long way there. So does Torian Gray's. It's down to Tennessee and South Carolina. And, just what this does, guys, is this is another, if they get him, he's a good bet to be an answer to a question. And there are question marks in the secondary. So Prunty ends up giving you another answer. So then, let's say that they need to move O'Donnell Fortune or Dominic Hill or Joey Hunter to safety. They have more freedom to do that because you have another corner there that you trust. And then guys like Marcellus Dial could be backups and kind of work their way in, which I think is important because I think Dial's pretty good. I think the issue is you're throwing an awful lot of guys out there that don't have any experience at this level, number one, and also because of the pandemic, the JUCOs and some of the kids from the FCS level, they haven't played football in a while. I mean, they haven't played football in a couple of years. So getting a guy like that to solidify things in the secondary, I think would be a big-time deal for South Carolina's prospects on the back end.
Depending on who it is, JC, I think, for those that are always interested in commitment lists and rankings and things like that, right now, according to 247sports.com, South Carolina is at 32 nationally, the 32nd ranked program nationally as far as the 2022 class goes, which is good enough for 10th in the SEC. That obviously would jump. We'll see how high, but no matter who it is, they might be knocking on the door of the top 25 here. What does that mean in June?
I don't think it means much where they're at right now in terms of, June. I think what the idea is to get out of the summer trending toward, a full class, filling your needs, closing the deal on some priorities that are ready to commit it up, and then working on finishing it off. Because with the early signing date now, you're basically done in December with a few exceptions. And so I think that's the focus right now. I think if you're the Gamecocks, what you want to do is kind of approach that top 25 mark sooner rather than later. I think given the fact that, it was a very small class last year and these rankings don't count transfers in their calculations, you're sitting there with an ugly number last year that's 80 that people that don't know any better just look at and say, well, they're really struggling in recruiting. And that's not true. But, I think that, the sooner you can get the number up back toward the top 25, i.e. where South Carolina's normally signed classes in recent memory, I think that's good. I also think, guys, if things go their way, and they thread the needle on some of these guys. It's not going to be easy, but they're in on enough good players. I think they can finish in the top 15 if things break their way. And that's the first time I've really said that, and that's just based on some really highly rated guys having better than, I don't want to say better than expected visits, but the visit that they've taken really made an impact on them. So it puts South Carolina in the crosshairs to land some guys that could really boost that ranking up. And so it's not where you are right now. It's where you finish if it matters, in terms of team recruiting rankings. And so I think they're sitting right where they need to be right now.
JC Shurburtt, 1240 Wednesday afternoon. It is June the 23rd. We are under 75 days from kickoff at Williams-Brice Stadium and all across the country in college football. The first real Saturday of the season, I guess is what we'll call it, September the 4th. Just my quick math here to JC. If South Carolina does receive a commitment from Prunty, first of all, he'll be eligible to play right now. But that would be the sixth new member of the secondary to join the program since the end of last season. That would be the sixth. I'm trying to look at all the names here, but I know Ladarian Craig, Marcellus Dial, Isaiah Norris, Carlins Platel, the transfer. He's a transfer. You've also got who am I missing here?
David Spalding.
David Spalding and the Prunty kid.
Yeah, and the Prunty kid. And Norris is not in yet. He's going to get in August, but that's a lot of guys. Tyrese Ross from Washington State, who you mentioned.
I did not mention him.
Yeah, and they were needed, those guys all were needed because they needed bodies back there. It was tough for them to practice sometimes in the spring, even with the new guys, and now you got even more coming in. And I think that really, you get a guy like Prunty in there. Like I said, you have to figure out who the starting safeties are. You got to figure out who's going to be a nickel, who's a big nickel, who's the regular nickel. This is a 4-2-5 defense with 5 spots, 5 starters in the secondary. So you have to have numbers. And I think getting a guy like Prunty answers a question to where you can focus, if you're Torian Gray, on answering some of these other questions that are on the back end and seeing who fits where. So, again, that would be a big deal. And certainly they have brought in a lot of numbers at DB since Beamer got the job. And I expect this class for 2022 of defensive backs to be pretty robust as well.
Ross and Prunty would be 2 Power 5 transfers, one out of the Pac-12, one out of the Big 12. What does that experience mean? I mean, we know where offenses are going. We see explosive offenses now in the SEC. Clearly, some of the best offenses we've ever seen the last couple of years have come from Alabama and LSU. And you look at what things, what they're doing down in Florida. Josh Heupel is now the head coach up at Tennessee, so watch out for big points coming to Rocky Top. Georgia's Georgia. You got Eli Drinkwitz up there at Missouri. He's obviously an offensive mind, so things have shifted in this league. These are guys who come from conferences where generally there's plenty of points scored. Does that mean anything?
I think with Ross and, if they do get Prunty, that what it gives you is guys that have gone out there and played at a high level of college football before. They've been in big stadiums. Ross, I think, played 10 to 13 games for Washington State as a freshman. I don't think they played but 3 or 4 games last year at Washington State. But, so he's got that experience. Obviously, Prunty's got the experience at Kansas. And in those 2 leagues, you're facing – in terms of style of offense, you're facing some pretty wide open attacks every single day. My goodness, in Ross's case, when Mike in practice against Mike Leach in that bunch, you probably got pretty good at facing some of these high octane attacks. And I think that players are players, and I think it doesn't really matter if a player comes from a lower level or a group of 5 level. But when you're talking about this particular year, when you have a lot of guys in that secondary that just have not played a whole lot of football, especially at this level, I think having some experience at the Power 5 does help. And I think that when you're looking at the corner situation, you kind of like what Cam Smith brings to the table, and then you look and you see a guy like Prunty, who was a freshman All-American. Well, there's a good duo to start with. And I think most Gamecock fans, when Horn and McWamu and Dixon and Robinson all got out of Dodge at the end of last year, the Muschamp era, I think if you'd ask Gamecock fans, hey, this is who you're going to line up with in the opener, they'd be pretty happy and pretty impressed considering what was lost and then what they've brought back in to get a good product on the field this year.
JC, as it pertains to this class that they're building moving forward, the 2022 class, I'm always very I like to cover as much recruiting as we can. I know that fans are interested in it. Obviously, that's what you do at thebigspur.com as well as anybody in the country. I might add, we did speak with Hale. I think when did we have Hale? Yesterday, Darren, who is just he's a shining star right now, who's covering recruiting. He's got the scoop, man. But in saying all that, I've always been cautiously optimistic pretty much about any young man that attends school. You just don't know how it's going to work out. And in the transfer day and age that we're in, you really don't know how it's going to work out. And saying all of that, I preface that to say this. It seems to be increasingly, I seem to hear this more often than not now, that the young man at quarterback that they have committed, Braden Davis, who is from Middletown, Delaware, the Blue Hen State, is a young man who is not even remotely close to what they're recruiting him to be. What I mean by that is we often hear the term high upside and things like that. It almost has felt to me, JC, I know he spent some time in Columbia. I think he's actually coming back, that the staff, even just hanging with him in person, was maybe even a little bit more impressed than they were prior to that.
Yeah, I think so. He's a very smart young man, ask a lot of questions, the right ones, has answers to them. He's got good leadership qualities. His dad is Antoine Davis, who played at Tennessee and played in the NFL. So,
oh wow,
he's got some NFL bloodlines there. They said he threw the ball nicely, and he's 6'5", 200 and something pounds, and he ran 4.56 in the 40. That's getting it. That's a speedy guy, for a taller quarterback like that. I mean, it's almost, you get a guy with those kind of physical tools, and it can get dangerous, I think, if as long as he develops the right way, and I have no doubt that he will. But yeah, they think, and like it was reported by Hale McGranahan on our site, that's not to take anything away from Gunnar Stockton. That's not any kind of sour grapes with Carolina, not liking him, wanting him, the new staff, whatever. But they feel like that they're in really good shape at quarterback when you consider you lost Stockton and then you landed on this guy. So I think that they're, the staff, from what we've heard, they're very fired up about Davis. Davis has also been to some other camps. He went to an Under Armour, it's called a Young 50, Future 50, something like that. Combine, and some of our guys that were out there had a lot of good things to say about him there. So he's on his way. He's already, a national top 200 prospect, and could end up going up when all is said and done. So I think that, I think the Gamecocks kind of found a good one there, and the state of Delaware is being pretty good to Carolina when you consider you got Marshawn Lloyd and Debo Williams from Delaware already there. And then Braden Davis coming in, and then they've got a defensive end from Delaware coming in on a visit this weekend. So the first state is quickly becoming a pipeline to South Carolina. And people don't know this. Delaware is the 7th highest per capita NFL production state out there. Now, per capita is a little bit tricky. That means they probably have, 4 or 5 guys a year that are really good in that state. And, they're not all going to go run the wing tee at the University of Delaware. So Carolina's doing pretty well with those guys right now.
Well, my wife started the migration south with Delaware when she moved down here 15, 16 years ago. So she started the pipeline, and we're glad to continue to contribute to that. Let's switch gears a little bit here, JC. And let's go to a really neat story that got major national press this morning on Fox and Friends with Shane Beamer's appearance and with Trey Atkins now on scholarship at South Carolina. A great story. You've mentioned him multiple times, a wonderful young man. I did not know until he went on scholarship last week that he's been delivering pizzas to help pay for his college tuition. Really remarkable. And then this morning they got the opportunity to tell that story on national TV. Of course, Ainsley Earhart is a wonderful, gracious host there. She's a Gamecock as well. So they were able to share some neat convo back and forth again on national TV. Number one, talk about Trey Atkins first, the player, and what we talk about all these other wide receivers and all these kids at Carolina who need to step up, need to do this, need to do that. You've mentioned before, don't count this kid out. So talk from that side with him, but then also, what that maybe meant to the Gamecock football program this morning. It was a great segment. I hope everybody was able to see it. Yeah,
with Trey Atkins, the bottom line with him is every time he's gotten a chance to play, he's caught the ball, and that was sort of, I don't want to overstate what he did, but when he's been in games over the last 2 years, he's caught it. And that's more than I can say for a lot of those guys. So he's caught it. He's gotten opened. He's deceptively fast. And certainly a guy that works extremely hard. And that's what I said. I felt going in, I was like, fine, there's 13 scholarship receivers. Some of these guys don't, if they don't pan out, right? Trey Atkins will end up taking away some of their snaps. So I still believe that because that's, I think he's got a chance to really help the team. As far as the segment goes, I was a little disappointed that, in some circles it became a debate about whether or not, you should go on Fox and Friends.
I just ignored it. I saw that.
I think that's garbage. I think that, something like that on a morning variety show, it could have just as easily been on the Today Show or Good Morning America or wherever.
Anywhere. Doesn't matter. It's national TV.
Yeah, just because a certain president that's no longer president loved to call into that show, and it was for softball questions. That doesn't mean that, Shane Beamer and Trey Atkins don't deserve all that they've gotten. And there was absolutely nothing political about what they did. Ainsley Earhart's a Gamecock, so that's probably where the connection came from. I believe she's a graduate of the University of South Carolina. And so that was disappointing, but I thought, absolutely Shane Beamer, he can handle any kind of interview. And it was really good to see that kind of publicity really anywhere, because you're just happy for the people involved. But, South Carolina during a time where they're trying to get that relevance back, I think is big. The more stuff like this that gets out there and gets a spotlight shined on it.
Let me ask you this, just to jump in there on Beamer. This isn't so much about the Atkins thing, which is it's a story in and of itself, right? And look, take publicity where you can get it. It's a great story. But this time in June, where it's supposedly the busiest, and not supposedly, it is the busiest recruiting month ever, and Beamer's making media rounds. He was on our show. He was on your show. He's been on multiple shows, TV and radio. It feels different to me. Is this different from other Carolina coaches, him getting out there? It seems very coordinated and planned, but also in a good way.
Yeah, it's a lot different than Will Muschamp. It was, look, Will Muschamp was always really good for me as far as me dealing with him. I loved the guy. I thought he was outstanding as far as, being good to my end of the media and all that good stuff. Now, the people that had to go sit in the press conferences and that depended on, getting access to coaches and players for interviews and things like that, that was a little bit more difficult because he sort of ran it like Nick Saban does it at Alabama. No freshmen, all this other stuff. And so I understand why they got frustrated. But this is Beamer's been, front and center. I don't think he's turned down hardly any request for interviews. And I think that it's refreshing because you read some of these articles circulating throughout college football with anonymous coach quotes that go, this is going to be the worst month ever in the history of college football. And this is awful. And I'm not going to see my family just gripe, complain.
Mm-hmm.
And here's Shane, he has to deal with all that as a first-time head coach and get recruiting rolling and, remember names and faces and family members and work people out. It's a lot. Yet he's still taking the time to go out there and be a positive public face for his program, which is needed as well. So I think, you talk about Shane Beamer and his positive energy, right? That epitomizes that right now. Because it'd be real easy just to say, "Oh my God, I'm way too busy," and blah blah blah, and I don't have time to do this. But I mean, I'm sure he would have done Fox and Friends. But I mean, he really has done a great job of endearing himself. And see what that does too is, I felt a lot of times the fans didn't really know Will Muschamp that well.
Yep, that's right. I agree.
And I think what this does is it's not so much talking to media and making media happy as it is you're reaching your fans and outreaching to a fan base that's been through a lot the past 7 years. And so I think that's important as well.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. I agree with that. And Darren, that's a great question because, this is the perfect opportunity right now, right? To get yourself out there when there's just not a lot going on in the sports world. And to be positive. There's so much negativity in this world every day. I see it right here. We've already gotten a comment, a political comment. This isn't political at all. Shane Beamer literally is willing to go talk to people about Carolina football and about himself and his kids and his team. And I think that's a wonderful thing, especially when you're a first-time head coach. I don't know if he's been coached to do this or if these are his decisions. To your point about Will Muschamp, though, is what I was getting at. Back to what you said just a couple of minutes ago. Not Shane. What's your name? JC. You're right. People didn't know Will Muschamp, and that was Will. Part of that's Will's fault. He didn't let him in. Anytime I ever talked to Will Muschamp, Darren, you and I talked to Will last year before the season. Couldn't be kinder. I remember after my children were born. I think a lot of people maybe know our story. Our kids have had some health issues. And, I talked to him that spring after spring practice. He knew what was going on. I had mentioned it to him. That's the first question he asked me. I didn't even get to ask him a question yet. So Will Muschamp's a really good guy. It didn't work out at Carolina, but people didn't know Will Muschamp. People they feel like they know Shane Beamer, and he has helped himself. I don't know that Will helped himself on that side of things, though.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would tell you that, and I think Ray Tanner knew that, and so I believe that's probably one of the reasons you see Beamer going above and beyond. But also, I think for any coach that came into South Carolina, that was going to be important.
Oh, no question, especially when you've won 6 games in 2 years.
Yeah,
you want to look to the rest of the country like you're a little bit more important than you have been. So they're trying to raise that profile. All right, we're going to hit a quick timeout. When we return, part 2 of our conversation, as it always is, with JC Shurburtt on Wednesday. JC, I do want to poke fun at Billy Napier a little bit here. We're sitting here talking about how good guys are. I do think Billy Napier's a good guy, but I'm still going to poke fun at one of the comments he made. He's due for a major raise down there at Louisiana Lafayette. Everybody says Louisiana. It's not, right, Darren? It is Louisiana freaking Lafayette. Don't ever forget that.
They like to be called the University of Louisiana.
I don't care what they like. Here in South Carolina, we call them Lafayette because of what they did to us in 2000. They will never be the University.
I was one of the first games I ever did televised, an E3 thing, was down there in their early days of trying to convince everyone to call them Louisiana. It was the early days. It was on their game notes. It was everything. But we collectively decided, no. At least they're past that point now, and they are at least getting recognized as what they want.
I give them some credit. There's no doubt, but they're still Lafayette to me. That's the way it's going to be.
I mean, it's really not fair to the people at Monroe. I mean, because they used to be Southwest Louisiana, and Monroe was Northeast Louisiana or Northwest Louisiana. And then they went to the dashes, Louisiana, Lafayette, Louisiana, Monroe. And then the school in Lafayette just said, we just going to be Louisiana.
Yeah. Well, what about the Mud Dogs? Who are they? All right, we'll go to break on that. I do want to ask you, we got plenty more on Carolina football as well. It's going to be a really fun hour. Hang tight. The JB and Goldwater show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back.
Mike Morgan here for Gamecock Traditions. Baseball is going strong. You'll want to look sharp when you cheer on your Gamecocks. Under Armour, New Era, sideline hats, all with interlocking SC Baseball logo. 18 styles of $10 tees exclusively at Gamecock Traditions. Get on that email list by going to the bottom of the page, enter your email, and always be the first to know about new items as they arrive. You can also add a little Gamecock flair with house signs, garden flags, interior and yard decorations, only at one place, Gamecock Traditions.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston. Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Lowcountry. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf team. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the national anthem.
JB Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
All right, final hour on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back. The JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by Stokes Volkswagen across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB and at Darren Goldwater. JC Shurburtt, of course, joining us for part 2 of our conversation. Our It's Time for Carolina Football mini-series. Part 1 begins at 1:30 today with a guy that I met through this fine gentleman who's on the air with us right now. That would be Keith Allsep. He is the host of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast, and this will be his debut on our program. He'll join us leading up into football season. We look back, look currently, and look ahead at South Carolina's program on the gridiron, history, all types of stuff. We'll have a lot of conversations we think that you'll enjoy. JC, of course, has a lot of history himself with the Carolina football program, and we tell that every week for a full hour. So there you go. All right, JC, let me go ahead and squash this bug real quick here, Darren. If you're going to comment, leave the politics out of it. Where nobody wants to see it anymore. We're not talking about it. We're moving on. So all of you who are listening and watching our show, we really appreciate that. Don't care what your political opinions are. Take them off our message boards. We're not going to listen to it. All right. Billy Napier reportedly is in line for a salary raise, JC, to about $2 million per year. Good for him. He has played this pretty well, which is what they do. They all do it. And so congratulations to Billy Napier. But I always find it funny when I go back and find some of the quotes that came out after he was not offered the job at South Carolina. I don't believe that he was offered the job at Auburn. I'm pretty sure he wasn't. But this quote is what always gets me. You remember this one, JC? A source close to Napier told 24/7 Sports in January, I think it was to Brandon Marcello, quote, he doesn't want to take a job that already has immediate disadvantages built in before you play a game. Dude,
know your name?
It's the SEC. All right. So you're taking indirect shots at Auburn and South Carolina because you weren't offered a job. Get that crap out of here. You know what I mean? I just always find that funny.
And Tennessee, for that matter. I mean, that was he took his name out of that one too. Look, I think highly of Billy Napier as a coach. I think I thought his offense at Clemson. I mean, obviously, when they made the move to Chad Morris, it was the right move considering the skill talent they had. But, I thought he got a raw deal there in a lot of ways. I didn't think it was his scheme that was that bad. I was happy to see him get back into the game calling plays and happy that he's had success down there at Louisiana. But it's been interesting, I mean, I guess – and I've heard kind of through the grapevine, a job that, he sort of has his eye on would be like NC State or Virginia Tech in the ACC. And those are like,
interesting,
good ACC jobs that care about football that you can kind of, you're not sitting there in the SEC West or at South Carolina. But I think his path to the South Carolina job got, stopped by Shane Beamer, just to be honest. I think that, at the end of the day, leadership at South Carolina had their choice. They had Shane Beamer, Billy Napier, or Scott Satterfield. And I believe that they could have worked something out with all of those guys. And they elected to go with Beamer. And I think that just, speaks to the type of candidate Shane was and the decision that they made. I don't think that has anything to do with Napier being a good coach or not. I think this. I think after the Muschamp era, when you look at Napier and his history as an assistant under Saban and sort of how he runs his programs, it's very similar to how Saban runs it and Kirby Smart and all those guys. Carolina football probably needed something a little different, just to be honest, with the state they were in and I think that's helped them keep a lot of players in the program. They haven't had the attrition that you'd be led to believe, just because, some of those other guys left. So I do think that's interesting. But hey, look, if you can make $2 million a year at Lafayette, they're, I think that's probably going to max out. But if LSU, NC State, Virginia Tech, someplace like that, I could definitely see Billy Napier landing when he takes his next step forward.
It's an interesting contract too, because it's a $3 million buyout if he's hired by somebody, I think before the end of this year, I think December 31st, and then it drops to $2 million. And then if their AD leaves before like 2024 or something like that, that literally like cuts in half. So it's kind of interesting that it's tied to the future of the athletic director. You don't see that a ton.
I like it though. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Does it? Yeah. I hadn't really thought about it. I don't know. Where would the AD be going? I mean, I don't know. Is he
anywhere? But that's the dude who hired you.
Yeah. Hey, look, they're doing something right down there. They got a great baseball program as well. I don't know how good their basketball program is, but it's a pretty good baseball program. And football. Yeah, they're pretty good in football, right?
Yeah, they're They're the I don't know though with Terry Bowden now at Louisiana Monroe with Rich Rod.
Yeah, that's right. It's over. Yeah, the Bowdens are back, man. Here they come. What program is in better shape for the future right now, Louisiana or Coastal? That's interesting.
I'm gonna say putting the whatever results they've had when they've played each other aside, I'm gonna say Louisiana.
You think so? I don't.
Well, I think that their recruiting base is a little bit better down there on kind of the Gulf Coast. That said, though, I mean, the recruiting base is nice, but you still have to have money, and I think Coastal's got money. I mean, Coastal spends money on their facilities. They've got a good location. They've got a good staff. It's kind of the Chadwell staff that works well together. So maybe not. I just kind of look at it through the prism of Coastal doesn't always has access to talent like Louisiana does. And so I look at it like that.
I think, first of all, that with what you said, and Darren, chime in where you agree or disagree here, right? But I think now that Coastal's on the map, I mean, they've got a bowl game in Myrtle Beach. All right. The exposure's there. And let's remember what they've kind of taken. Not Coastal does recruit this state. Don't get me wrong. We know they recruit the state. We know they recruit the Southeast. But they've also done. They've also piggybacked on Myrtle Beach's national ad campaigns, guys. Just like Gary Gilmore has done for years in baseball. They go right up there to the Northeast. Oh, you like playing football, huh? Would you rather play it at the beach, or do you want to play up here and freeze your rear end off all year? Oh, yeah, the beach sounds nice. Come on down. I think as long as Chadwell, he's not going to be there forever. Can we all agree on that? But what do you think? 2 more years tops? I mean, he's going somewhere, right?
Well, that's why the programs I think are pretty similar, because JC just basically laid out the recruiting advantages down in Louisiana. You're laying out the advantages the Coastal has. Both coaches are probably shorter than longer going to be there. So they're probably in a pretty similar spot, just with different home bases for their recruiting tools.
That's good.
I mean, Coastal had a magical year last year.
Pros and cons.
But, my question is, are they going to be able to sustain it? Mm-hmm. And then this is a season where they have a lot of expectations heading in. And look, the other thing, too, about Coastal that I like and what kind of gives them a little more pizzazz is that with the new playoff system, they would have made it this past year. They would have most likely made it. So, hey, it's it's going to be interesting to sort of see how they if they could sustain it, because I think that's usually the key with any up and coming program is, okay, great year, what's going to happen next, and we'll find that out pretty quick. I mean, they've got they don't have a ridiculously hard schedule, but they do play Kansas again. They got Buffalo.
That's no problem. They beat Kansas every year.
Yeah, I mean, they got App State and Boone. Open up with the Citadel, which is never easy. So we'll find out about them, but I do think that their schedule is such that we could see them go undefeated if they get past those first few games and things like that. So it should be an exciting year in Conway.
That's very interesting. Yeah, there's some what we would call group of 5 teams, JC, as we're now, we see the ruling on Monday and the Alston versus NCAA case, right? All right. And then you got name, image, and likeness. Things are changing, things are evolving. One of the things that Darren and I have kind of discussed a little bit is expansion. What leagues will look to expand. I'm not talking about tomorrow, but maybe if they're interested in expanding and having a better shot at getting more teams knocking on the door of a 12-team playoff in 4 or 5 years. The Big 12 has 10 teams. Math doesn't even add up. But when you think about the group of 5 teams across the country, right? All right, let's think about it for a second. You got the one who would be considered for expansion. Because I think this conversation, I think folks need to get ready for this. It's coming. In the next couple of years, you're going to hear a lot more about it. Central Florida. What about Boise? Is Boise a Pac-12 team? Should they be? Maybe. Cincinnati. Is Cincinnati a Big 12 team?
You got
a TV market there, JC.
You do, but and you have one outpost already with West Virginia.
It's true.
You know, and this is the problem, is that you have some schools that are in areas that would make sense. Like West Virginia would make all the sense in the world for the ACC to have in their league.
What about the SEC?
I think the SEC could fit for West Virginia as well. You know, I don't think they're a Big 12 school. I mean, they're in Pittsburgh, for God's sake, basically. I mean, it's the University of West Virginia. I mean, so I don't. And I think that has a lot to do with academic snobbery and things like that. You know, some of these schools and these leagues have. You know, Cincinnati obviously geographically fits into the Big Ten, but Ohio State's not going to want that.
That's
to
not
happen.
happening.
You know, I mean, so. And my question was, when somebody mentions UCF, I think that as a school, they are in prime position to be a Power 5 level program. But I mean, who's really in the market for more teams? Is the Big 12 going to expand into, Florida? I mean, so you'll have a league that's, we're primarily in Texas, and you got to go all the way to Ames, Iowa, and Orlando, Florida, and then, Morgantown, West Virginia. I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's an interesting discussion to have. If I'm the Big 12, I'm at BYU, and I'm going to work around because they have some kind of deal where they can't do things on Sundays or whatever that impacts the other sports. I'm going BYU and getting back into the Rocky Mountains that I hadn't been into since Colorado left, and I'm adding Boise State. I think those are sort of Western schools that make sense, at least a little bit geographically. That would add to your footprint. And that is if the Big 12 and Pac-12 don't do something crazy like merge, which could happen, and then all bets are off. But I do think that, when you're looking at who would be in the market for more schools, it's the Big 12, and then you just don't really know. I mean, they're probably not going to add Houston and SMU back. I mean, that's just probably not going to happen because it doesn't help them. So I think it's really interesting.
Do you think with what we learned this week, with what came out of the high court, and obviously with name, image, likeness, I brought up the fact that I think down the line we're going to see expansion. I think we'll see a wider gap, like a cavern between the haves and the have-nots. And the Power 5 could be however many, and then this gap, and then everybody else. Do you agree? Am I thinking along the lines of where this could be going?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think money is going to play a factor. And, you start thinking about the new SEC TV deal, and when CBS, comes off of it and Disney comes on for the game of the week, it's going to be worth like $20 million more a school. Mm-hmm. Nobody will be able to touch the TV money in the SEC, at least for a while, till the Big Ten re-ups theirs. And look, there are also some situations like when you talk about the Pac-12, and I've been reading up on the peril of that league. A lot of the school presidents in that league aren't really – their mindset is, hey, let's, spread the money around and spend it on all sports, and we're not going to overspend on football or this, that, and the other. And, hey, well, that's fine. You don't want to spend money on, facilities and things like that. Then it's going to impact your recruiting, and you're not going to be able to compete. And that's kind of the deal there. And then, of course, this name, image, likeness thing and the Supreme Court ruling this week, I think, just sets a precedent for an expansion of financial benefits for players, which I think is good as long as they just don't bust the whole thing wide open. And if the NCAA is smart, I think they're circling back going, okay, we lost this. Okay, so now, which I thought was stupid anyway, that you couldn't. I didn't know you couldn't get a football player a laptop and cover his educational expenses for that. That was kind of dumb to begin with, but. I think if the NCAA kind of recircles back and starts to look at, exactly what, they need to do to boost up the compensation, whether that's paying these guys like they pay teachers' assistants, giving them health insurance for longer than they play, that kind of thing. They need to head that off, because you got some really dumb people in Congress right now that don't really know a whole lot about it, that want unions and labor, organized labor, and all that stuff. And I mean, that's just not gonna. That's not the answer either. So hopefully the NCAA has a wake up call and goes, "Hey, look, we need to put our own policies in place here, and start to kind of get out ahead in front of this stuff, or the whole deal is going to come crashing down, and you're going to see schools leave and form their own thing and all that.
Yeah.
If this continues,
I've said this for years. I think Darren and I have had some discussions on it as well. I don't see how literally any good can come out of having to work with the United States government on this. I mean, you have way too many personal and political interests up there. Do we really think that like there aren't, all types of backdoor deals happening? And I mean, oh Lord, man, deal with this without Republicans and Democrats yelling at each other across the aisle. Like this is one of the more sacred traditions, college athletics, that this country's got. Men's and women's sports and the passion that's behind it. I mean, everybody, this is what music, I honestly truly believe this, like music and sports are what really bring us together. If you really think about it, I mean, JC and I could sit there and sing Eric Church all night long and not have a damn political belief that coincides with one another, and we would never know it because we just sang every song and drank an entire bottle of Buffalo Trace. So I don't know. It worries me with the U.S. government and everybody trying to lean on them for answers, because I just don't know that's the right move. All right, but let's move on. Speaking of moving, let's move on. Phil Steele, speaking of people whose jobs are going to get more difficult, boys and girls, how about the future of the Phil Steele magazine, right? I mean, you can literally transfer like tomorrow, and he just sent 7 million magazines to press to print. So
that's that could be an unintended casualty, I think, of of magazines like that, because that Phil Steele's magazine usually has it's about data and players and getting everything. Yeah. I mean, it's very accurate, I think. And so with all the portal stuff, I mean, you're outdated within 2 weeks these days. So, hopefully there's a workaround. I think that if I thought about it, I could probably, do something to where you could make the magazine, keep it relevant without bowing to the portal and that kind of deal.
I think, though, too, like, doesn't Phil Steele deserve so much credit, guys? Like, do you purchase any other magazine?
Is there someone who works harder in sports media? I mean, when everyone else is on their downtime, he's cranking out, the tiniest print you can possibly find, hundreds of pages, and getting it to print in June.
I know. And he starts, when does he start? At the very end of the prior season. He starts the next year's groundwork. And then, but honestly, like Darren, so Phil Steele sends us magazines, right? I know he sent them last year. I'm assuming we'll get some this year. And then I guess we'll have him on the show. So that's his little promotion through media companies. He does it all over the nation. But like, I read, I'd say 70%, 80% of that magazine last year. There were some things that I didn't get to. It's hundreds of pages. Is there any other, literally, now I'm not asking about books. Is there any other magazine that any of you even pick up in 2021 besides that? I don't.
I'll get the Athlon ones and write articles about the anonymous quotes. I like that, but that's that's the best thing. And look, some of the feature stories and the pictures are good, but I don't. I since I started kind of living this stuff on the internet, the excitement of the preseason magazines has kind of faded away. But I do read Phil's, and I do think he's a very hardworking guy. And Mike Morgan and I have had him on the podcast before, and plan to have him on again in the near future. So it's his stuff is you can tell he puts a lot into it, and I'll leave it at that.
Dude, I last year when he was on your show, I think it was after sometime he was on ours, Darren. We had him early, like probably really early.
We did have him early. I don't know how or why that happened, but right as he started sending out the, hey, I'm available, we had him pretty early.
We had him, like literally, really early. And then I heard him on with Mike and JC, and I felt like one of the dumbest humans in the world. I mean, they just know so much, all three of those guys do. And that was an awesome conversation. I'm looking forward to that again. Well, this year he's got 5 Gamecocks on all SEC lists. Let's talk about the one that's on the first team, JJ Enigbare. this is a kid, JC. I look at him and, I don't compare anybody ever to Jadeveon Clowney, ever. You get compared to Jadeveon Clowney when you become Jadeveon Clowney, and that happens about once every 50 years. So we'll address this again in about 40 years. But I do compare him to a string of exceptional defensive linemen that the Gamecocks have had for 20 plus years. I mean, you could go back further, but I certainly started right around the John Abraham era and project forward. So they put so many in the NFL. What do you anticipate from JJ Enagbare this year from the South Carolina side of things, but also on a national level? Like, what could JJ Enagbare be?
I think he could, we could see him keep up the streak of first round picks for the Gamecocks. I think it would be, you had Kinlaw, then you have Horn. Then the year, I guess it was Debo was a second rounder. So Hurst, then a year off, and then Kinlaw, and then Horn. I mean, I think Enagbare could be that next guy. He's a natural pass rusher. Some people would tell you probably accurately that he needs to be better against the run, but they don't draft people that are really good at pass rushing because of how they play the run. I got news for people in the NFL. They're like, we can teach him to play the run because he gets hit in the mouth a couple of times. He's going to play the run just fine. But the natural pass rushing ability, and even if you look at it this year, guys, there were some pretty interesting pass rushers that got drafted, especially toward the end of the first round. Like a guy from Houston that even Herb Street and those guys were like, this is kind of a projection here, but Enagbare has that ability, that special quality to get to the passer, and that's a first round deal. That's a first round deal if he can produce, and I think he's got a good chance at doing that this year. I think. If you're kind of looking for a comparison, Dante Sawyer, who didn't project to be that kind of guy, but his senior year, he led the country in forced fumbles and had 5 of them, and really came into his own. And I think this year, from the standpoint, just like Dante, that you're going to kind of look up and see JJ making big plays consistently. I think that's what kind of year he could have, and the sky's really the limit.
He also has, Phil Steele does, Kevin Harris and Nick Muse on the All-SEC second team, and Zach Pickens on the third team. By the way, offensive lineman Javon Gwynn, a fourth team pick. We'll obviously talk about all these positions as we get closer to the season. But I'll kind of leave it at this, JC, let you cap it off here, and then we'll got to run to a break. But I do think it's a good sign that the nation is noticing guys like Zach Pickens and JJ Enagbare. Jordan Birch, it's his time. I mean, Jordan Birch is a sophomore this year. He played off last year. It's time to go for Jordan Birch, and I expect he'll be pretty good, JC. But when you see Zach Pickens, JJ Enagbare start popping up on lists, that's 2 of 4 projected starters for the Gamecocks. What does that mean, in your opinion, for their entire defense at this point?
I think it means, like we've said, the strength is going to be the defensive line. And I think when you're looking for answers a lot of times on the back end, a good pass rush can really help you out, in the secondary. If you're tipping passes and making the quarterback throw off balance and putting pressure on him, that really helps your defensive backfield. I think that was, quite frankly, one of the problems last year. South Carolina didn't really consistently get pressure on the quarterback. And I think that obviously can change. And, you throw in Pickens and Birch and Enagbare and, you've also got Jabari Ellis, who's back. Jakeem Green came in. Rick Sandage is still there and fighting hard. They moved Tonka Hemingway to the inside. Jordan Strong comes in from Georgia State. He didn't even get to practice this spring. He led the country in sacks, and he's already up to 245 pounds. So I think that they've got a lot of different pieces on that D-line. And it not just they've got highly star-rated guys that are good, and then they've got, proven guys. Yeah, like productive guys, like an Aaron Sterling, who I didn't even mention, and Enagbare and Jordan Strong. So I think it's a nice mix that Mike Peterson and Jimmy Lindsey have. and certainly should be the type of group Clayton White as a defensive coordinator can get a little creative with because of the different body types and the proven production that is in that group.
I think those first two games of the year, Eastern Illinois and East Carolina, neither one of them is going to have an offensive line that's remotely close to what this group will be for South Carolina. That will be a chance for them to make some noise early and to build some confidence. And all of that is ahead in September. It's June. On that note, before we let you run, one of your pride and joys who works for you, Mr. Hale McGranahan, has entered into the message boards at the bigspur.com that the new commitment is going to be announced at a later date. And the timeline is it won't be this weekend or this month. Why is that important? Because the Prunty kid is announcing apparently this weekend.
Yeah, it's not. I'll say this: it's not Prunty. It's not. That's not who Hale is referring to. I can confirm that part of it, but that's about it. Like I said earlier, Beamer, it's a little different than Muschamp. Beamer will let it fly and let the welcome home fly, and then it'll be a scheduled announcement in 2 weeks. So that's kind of how it is. But I think sometimes things like that make it even more fun to cover. So
absolutely. JC, it's always fun to hang out with you. I know I sent you a text the other night. Michael Flint was just gushing about the bigspur.com, how much he enjoys it. And we just enjoy your friendship and all of your teammates over there at the Big Spur. Thank you so much for everything that you do for us every week, professionally and personally.
All right. Thanks, guys. I enjoyed it. And hopefully we'll see you next week.
Hey,
and
by the way, you're looking good. We see it in your face. You're shedding the LBs, man.
Oh man, I hope this keeps up quickly and I can get my energy back because it drains you a little bit. But I appreciate that, guys, and hopefully I'll be by the time I roll through Columbia in September, I'll be a very light version of myself. So that'll be good.
And ready for some bourbon.
That's awesome. All right, thanks, fellas.
See ya. There you go, JC Shurburtt, owner of the bigspur.com. Power Hour, powered by Wando Power Equipment. WandoPower.com here in the Low Country for everything you need in the outdoors. Right there, Wando Power Equipment. Everything, literally, and you can rent it and finance it if you need to. Time for a timeout. Part one of the all-new It's Time for Carolina Football mini-series on the JB and Goldwater show with our friend Keith Allsep. He hosts the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast from Texas. We go from Illinois to Texas. Hang tight. We're going to have some fun when we get back.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with zero down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump? Strike two! If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come to us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with zero down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to BCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp That's right. Local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Game Day Burger every Wednesday, Rib Night on Friday, rotating caps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road. Okay, what's going on today, huh? Anything to talk about?
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon. Greetings and a good Tuesday afternoon. Greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard. All right, greetings and a good Thursday afternoon. Greetings and a good Friday afternoon, and welcome aboard. 1:34, final segment Wednesday afternoon, and it's not scorching in South Carolina, which is beautiful. JB, Darren, and Keith Allsep, who is the owner, operator, host, and everything else in between of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast, is making his debut with Darren and I as part of our all-new mini-series that will go for the next 10 weeks or so. It's time for Carolina football mini-series, which is brought to you by our products, as a matter of fact, and, of course, by the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast in partnership with us. What's up, my friend?
Hey, so I just want to let you know, I know you're having separation anxiety from your trash can. Your wife can probably prescribe a pill for that.
She can. I'm not a big pill guy. I'm still flabbergasted, if that's the right word, as to how a damn trash can fall off of the claw and into the back of the truck.
Hey, so let me tell you. So my next door neighbor, Dietrich Gels, former NFL wide receiver and Pitt wide receiver, that would never happen to him because that dude, he stalks the trash can people. Like as soon as they come, by the time they're putting his trash can back down, he's already walked out the door and he's waiting to pull his trash can back in the garage or around the side of the house. So, I could probably put you guys in touch and, maybe you could
talk some strategy,
a support group for you to kind of help make sure that doesn't happen again.
I'm the guy who puts it back like at the end of the day. I mean, it's out there, it's done, and then I get around to it before I go to bed.
Yep, same here. So, or when I come in from work.
Yeah.
This is all good strategy. I'll put this in my game notes.
Strategery.
That's right. Well, welcome aboard, my friend. Glad we're able to have you on. Keith will join us on at least the next couple of weeks on Wednesdays. Darren and I will be off the week of the 4th of July. We're looking forward to spending some time with our family. And then we'll be back full bore all the way to Christmas. And we'll take another week off. We're looking forward to that. So Merry Christmas, everybody. But what this series is, it's time for Carolina football. We'll look at the past, present, and future of the program. We'll certainly talk about players and plays and offenses and things like that. But Keith has been around a long time. He's almost 100. He'll turn 100 here in the next couple of months. And he's seen a lot in this program. And so I thought he'd be a great addition to just having some fun with Gamecock football as it approaches. We're under 75 days, Keith. So we are, right? New coach, 2 straight losing seasons, 6 total wins in the last couple of years. Is there a scenario or a coaching change or a time that you can remember that this is comparable to? Probably more specific to when a coaching change was made at some point in time in the last few decades. Is there anything that comes to mind where that just kind of the steps that we've taken, where things have gone, that kind of brings you back a little bit?
Well, I mean, I think so much has changed, particularly with the advent of the early signing period, that when you fire your football coach, that first recruiting class, I mean, it's sunk. South Carolina was not having a good recruiting class anyway, because they were coming off 4-8, and you had a lot of remarks that were made and denied, and then reporters published video, audio recordings and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And so everybody was wait and see. And then as far as a firing during the season, I mean, gosh, I can't remember that. I mean, even Brad Scott, was fired like at the very end of the season. Everybody in the world knew that was coming.
Yeah.
And so I guess the only comparison I can make is I think Sparky Woods and Will Muschamp both did a good job recruiting and getting players on campus. Neither could win enough. Both got fired, and a first-time head coach took their place and immediately won with their players. At least Brad Scott did.
Yeah.
Went to the CarQuest Bowl. He had Steve Tannehill. I don't think Luke Doty's Steve Tannehill. He could be, because he could have the flowing mane, unlike Darren and myself.
That's right.
He could have the flowing mane if he chose to, but Tannehill had a pretty epic freshman campaign. And by the time Brad Scott came in, I mean, he was a veteran guy that was a true gunslinger. And so I really don't know. I mean, look, Shane Beamer's not Lou Holtz or Steve Spurrier. He's not a Hall of Famer. Sparky Woods came from Appalachian State after following Mac Brown. Paul Dietzel, Jim Carlin. The 1 year Richard Bell experiment. Hopefully Shane Beamer does not remind anybody of Richard Bell. Joe Morrison, when I was in school, the Man in Black. And so I can't really compare it to anything other than he's a first-time head coach. And I don't want to really compare him to Brad Scott, because that's like the size of my head compared to the size of JC's head. I mean, I know people are, having to adjust their sets or wonder if their glasses are on or not.
Yeah.
But I'm fired up for Shane Beamer, and look, he's the new coach for a reason, right? Will Muschamp didn't leave and go to LSU after he won 10 games 3 years in a row. He went 4-8 and 2-8. And, I just think fans have to have some realistic expectations. It's going to take some time. But I do like what I've seen from Shane Beamer and his staff. I think they are establishing a winning culture, a culture that is about the program and the players and a lot of positive energy. And so, it's just going to take time.
I think, Keith, when you go back, like you mentioned, all right, so when Brad took over, which for those that maybe even today second guess that, I mean, Brad Scott was the hottest name in college football. I mean, everybody wanted the Hines guy. He came to Carolina and made a hell of a commercial. But I think when he took over for Sparky, you made a good point. Like, there was talent on that roster. So, like, that's kind of where I'm going with this. So there was talent there. And then when Brad left and Coach Holtz took over, there wasn't a lot of talent. They played really hard, but they couldn't score. We all know that. I think they scored like 81 points all year in 1999. I mean, it was the disaster of all disasters, right? And then when Coach Holtz left and Coach Spurrier took over, that's kind of where I compare the roster. Like, there weren't, the problems were different, but there was talent there when Lou left. It wasn't loaded with talent. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, but Coach Spurrier didn't start from the ground up. I mean, he came in and had some guys to play with. That's what it reminds me of a little bit.
Well, I mean, look, Lou Holtz had Phil Petty and Andre Goodman and Sheldon Brown and John Abraham and Kalimba Edwards and Dennis Quinn and Shannon Wadley and Kenny Harney and Antoine Neesmith. And I mean, they had a lot of guys. Lou came in and just beat the hell out of them the first year. I think they had like 15 offensive linemen injured out for the year. They were having to, I remember Skip telling me that they were moving guys on Wednesday from defensive line to offensive line. Langston Moore was one of them. They're on the plane going to Arkansas, trying to figure out, what kind of plays they could run. They had all the quarterback injuries. And, he did, bring in 3 running backs and, some offensive linemen. Shane Hall was one. Well, Rail Johnson was another guy that was left that was on those Outback Bowl teams with Melvin Page. And there were a lot of guys that were left behind by my good friend Brad Lawing, who was a recruiting coordinator, and Brad Scott.
You mentioned Brad, probably the best defensive line coach that I can ever remember at South Carolina. Maybe probably in the history of the program. He is the best defensive line coach until we're proven otherwise, maybe by Jimmy Lindsay or whomever. Have you spoken to him about this group? What do you think Brad Lawing would say if he saw Zach Pickens, Jordan Birch, and J.J. Enigbare specifically, those 3, when he walked on the field?
Oh, well, he thinks all those guys are NFL guys. Look, he thought he was going to get Zach Pickens when he was at Florida State. He worked with Boogie Huntley and Jordan Birch. They're both NFL guys. I know he likes JJ. Look, if you rolled out, and I'm not saying this is who it's going to be, but if you rolled out Jordan Birch and JJ Enigbare and Rick Sandage and Zach Pickens, and you put Dallas Cowboy uniforms on them and trotted them out at Cowboy Stadium, nobody would be surprised. They'd be like, man, those guys,
they
look pretty good. And so, it's time for Zach Pickens and Rick Sandage to really be big-time players. I think we all, believe JJ's going to have a great year. By all accounts, Mike Peterson's done a great job with Jordan Birch. And, look, nobody's Jadeveon Clowney. I'm not going to compare him,
No.
He's probably a more natural athlete. And honestly, if Jordan Birch, if they didn't need him on defense, he could probably be a first-round draft pick as an NFL tight end.
I know.
You
ever wonder what Clowney would have done as a tight end? Did we ever think about that?
Well, I don't know if he could catch. I know Birch can catch because, I've seen him catch it. And, Eric is a friend of mine. We, were on each other's podcasts until he became a big-time college coach.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Forgot about that. that beer drinking Eric Kimry over there coaching tight ends. Yeah, at least he's not a banquet guy like Spurrier was.
Yeah.
He's
Yep. The ball coach.
Like guy.
So a good friend of mine was picked him up at the airport.
Who, Coach Spurrier?
Yeah, to take him to the Greenville County thing. And so they're up there, and he motions for the guy. He's like, hey, go get a couple of Diet Coke cans and pour the Diet Coke out and pour the Coors in there and bring it up here. I can't drink the beer out of the beer bottle. And so, every post-game press conference, the ball coach was sipping on ice cold Coors in a Sprite or a Diet Coke can. You can count on that.
Hey, well, you know what? And that's probably why he invited guys like Ron Cooper into the press conference when they couldn't stop anybody that night.
That's right.
How much, do you think, Keith, it'd be good for – I know that Coach Spurrier, he doesn't overstep his boundaries at all. Steve never wanted anybody stepping on his toes. You didn't even dance on Steve's dance floor if he was out there. You stay the hell away from it. That's Steve Spurrier's product. But, how much do you think he should be involved? Do you think that he's a guy who should hang around from time to time? I know that him and Shane talk, but how now that Coach Muschamp is gone, I don't know that it was maybe. I know that they know each other, and I know that they're friends. I know they're friendly and their families get along and things like that. But now, this is kind of one of Spurrier's guys. I mean, Beamer's a Spurrier guy amongst many. How much do you think he'll hang around the program? Should he?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that's his job at Florida still, isn't it? I mean,
well, yeah, but he can visit, right? He comes up a lot. I know he comes up a lot.
Well, I mean, technically, South Carolina is Jerry Spurrier's alma mater. Okay.
Right.
Jerry, she loves those players. She loves up the coaches. I mean, I think she should be in the Hall of Fame as an all-time great coach's wife if they had a Hall of Fame for them. But, I mean, depending on who you want to listen to, I mean, the parting of ways was not the most amicable with Shane leaving South Carolina. I mean, look, I'm not saying if you ask him, he's going to tell you, but I mean, I know what I was told. So,
yeah.
After the SEC championship game is what, they had the disastrous kickoff right before the half, and Cam Newton, who could throw it 100 yards anyway, only had to throw it about 50, for the Hail Mary right before the half.
Golly.
It's like, well, Shane, I think it's probably time for you to go work for your daddy. And then, a few days later, it's like, well, Shane, I really didn't mean that.
You're right.
It's kind of too late. So
but that's Spurrier in a nutshell. I mean, he just whatever he's thinking at that point in time is going to come out. I mean, I could ask 100 guys to tell me a Steve Spurrier story, and they're all going to be able to tell you 100 stories instead of just one. But they're also going to be able to tell you one where you more than likely should be offended by what he said to you. But if you know how to take it with Coach Spurrier, you just kind of move on to the next day.
I think he was a much kinder to play golf with than Lou Holtz. Though like Lou on the golf course, I know somebody that played golf with Lou, and like after about the second hole, Lou banished him to go back with the other group. He was so bad.
Spurrier did that to Beamer.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like Courtney Leavitt. Like Courtney Leavitt, he does the best Lou Holtz impression. I mean, he sounds more like Lou Holtz than Lou Holtz, but we used to work together. That's how we became friends in the pharmaceutical industry back in South Carolina. And, Courtney would tell Lou that he made him nervous watching him kick. And Coach Holtz was like, well, son, I'm going to be watching you kick every time. You better not get nervous. And my guy that played golf, he was so nervous, and he wasn't a very good golfer anyway. And I think, Lou, probably in addition to, spitting on him profusely, and he was dog cussing him, the guy had to go to the back, to the back group.
Did you ever see the video? I know Darren's seen it 1,000 times. Keith, did you ever see the video? Was it Eisberg's video, Darren? Or was it Dean Stevens?
It was before. Dean was back in the studio, and it was a female intern, a sports intern, whose job it was to get that sound. And basically what happened is Lou was told he'd have to sit there for X amount of time. The time went a little bit longer, and man, he just eviscerated her. Just awful.
Did you ever see that, Keith?
I did not, but I have a good friend who was on the staff under Lou Holtz. And he called me about halfway through the 2000 season when they were doing really good. And so I asked him, what's it like working for Lou Holtz? And he's like, that guy you see on TV every Sunday? He's like, we waiting for that guy to show up, because he never shows up. Mm-hmm. It's like there was never a moment during the day in the office when you could just exhale and relax. Like you never knew, like if you were getting on the elevator to go down, you did not want to get on the elevator with Lou Holtz, because you just never knew what it was going to be like.
Keith Allsep, he is the owner, host, and talent and everything in between of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. He's kindly asked me to be on it quite a few times. He'll be with us for the next few weeks, 10 weeks, as a matter of fact, as we head into football season on the It's Time for Carolina Football mini-series right here on our program, JB and Goldwater. You can actually, we have some really neat apparel. If you want to head to jbandgoldwatershow.com, you can check out our store as well. jbandgoldwatershow.com. I'm actually wearing one of the t-shirts today. Keith, I saw that you ordered one. I'd send you one. You should have told me you wanted one. I'd send one in the mail.
I mean, I just had to have it. I'm like the rest of America. When I see something I want, I'm buying it online.
I should have had the mug. So there's not just it's Carolina. It's time for Carolina football. We got some logoed up JB and Goldwater stuff. Yeah, and I've got the mug. It would have been appropriate for me to think of that before now.
I know my JB and Goldwater. I have the tall.
You can send me the mug. I drink coffee, so I'd love to add that to my collection.
Do you want for beer at the pool as well? If you're into that,
yeah. Do you want the?
Hey, look, I'm just like Justice Kavanaugh. Okay, I love a cold beer. All right, I mean,
I'm with you. Well, cold bourbon. I see mine, but I didn't order myself a mug. I got the tall, like Yeti cup.
Yeah.
And that's what I drink my liquor at. But I got my JB and Goldwater on. I guess I need to get my
those. There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Oh, ours is kind of like that.
I even got one. One of my patrons sent me one that has the Cockfather on it.
You've showed me that before. That's what people.
Yes.
I guess I need to come up with a nickname for myself. Darren, come up with a nickname for me.
Not what he just said.
No, I'm
not even going to go there.
Put this to bed right off the bat. Okay, it was 1997. And there was this thing called the internet that I'd never seen or heard of before. And so they say, well, like, what's your favorite movie? And I'm like, well, The Godfather. And they said, oh, well, you got to incorporate, all the nicknames had, Gamecock, Cox, something in there on the message boards. And so I just went for The Cockfather, and it stuck.
Well,
I'm 57. I'm old. I'm cranky, and I don't really give it.
57. I was way off. I thought you were up in your 90s already. My bad.
Well, I mean, I was in the first grade when Strom Thurmond came into kindergarten, and I kind of showed him the ropes.
Well, there you go. Look at that. See the cup on the right. You drink out of that one, Darren.
Yep.
And mine's a little bit taller than that. And then on the left, there's your cup holder or whatever you call those damn things.
Coaster. That was
coaster.
A coaster.
Yeah, coasters. JB and Goldwatershow.com. Over the next few weeks, we're gonna again incorporate the past, the present, and the future into our conversations with Keith here about South Carolina football. Keith, kind of leave it at this. I'll leave you with the final word here. We got about a minute left, and then we'll have to let you run. But I, as a fan of Carolina football, I felt kind of free. I like Will Muschamp as a person. Really supported him. I really did. But there was always a piece of you that was just like, I just don't know. When Spurrier got to town, you were like, good things are coming. And I felt more like that was. Even when you lost games with Steve, you didn't feel like you had lost the program. You know what I mean? And I feel like that feeling has kind of slipped back in. It's a cautious optimism that I think is scattered itself across the fan base. What do you think?
Well, I mean, anytime you have a coaching change, you're 0-0. And so there is optimism. I mean, I think, Shane Beamer has more credibility because he was a part of the foundation that Steve Spurrier laid on those, best teams, even though he left after the SEC championship, the only SEC championship game appearance, which I made sure I was there for that because hell, there's no guarantee there'd ever be another one. And so at least I was there. But he's a reminder of the best of times at South Carolina. And I think he's doing a lot of good things, getting a lot of former players, getting them on staff, the staff that he's building and the culture that he's building. And, it's just, going to get through these first 2 or 3 recruiting classes are going to tell the tale for him to, can he get enough players and then they develop the players they've got? I know you talked to JC a lot about this. He and I have always said Will Muschamp's greatest gift to Shane Beamer was that last full recruiting class with Boogie and Birch,
Great point.
Lloyd and Luke Doty and all those guys. Only one guy that was in that class left. And so that's a good foundation along with these guys from the portal. And, we'll just see where it goes from there. But he knows what good looks like. His dad's a Hall of Famer. Spurrier's a Hall of Famer. Lincoln Riley. I mean, I won't get into Kirby, but,
Yeah, but he's been around a lot of guys who've been successful for one reason or another and has been able to kind of, shake a few pennies out of each dollar from each one of those guys into his little piggy bank there, and we'll see what comes of it. Keith, on that note, we'll let you run, my friend, but we look forward to talking to you again next Wednesday, the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. You can get it anywhere. It's a tremendous listen. Keith's been doing this a long time. He's one of the more respected voices in the Gamecock world of sports. I know that there's some basketball stuff you probably need to get to here this week, and so we'll look forward to that.
Absolutely. Hey, guys, thanks. It's a real treat being on, and next week I got to ask Darren about avocados. I mean, come on, dude. 8 million pounds of avocados are consumed just during the Super Bowl. How can you not like avocado?
I mean, it's just the texture thing. It's like eating mush.
I was wondering where that was going. I forgot you had said that.
I didn't know either, but I will still back my thought up that I'm not a fan.
That will be. Let me make sure we put that down for next week. That'll be the first thing we get to. I promise.
Now, a good guacamole, I'll have some. I won't hang out with it, but I'll.
That's what it is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's like my little girl. You got to just dress it up a little bit and tell her it's something else. And
at least you know what it is. You love hot dogs, and nobody knows what's in a hot dog, but it tastes good.
That's right.
No doubt about that. Thanks, Keith.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Keith Allsep, Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. And that, my friends, is all but it for us. Look, I retweeted it earlier. If you're not following the Dog and Duck on Twitter, you should. And if you see that picture, your mouth will instantly water.
Someone, I don't remember who it was at the beginning of the show, wanted to know if they could, like, Uber Eats the game day burger up to wherever, Pennsylvania or something.
Killer. Oh, go get one. The brown bag special on Wednesdays at Dog and Duck. Seventh Woods is headed to Morgan State. South Carolina and Florida State will play a neutral site in hoops in Rock Hill in December. Huh? And if you haven't heard, Brennan Malone transferring from the Gamecock baseball program. Thanks to Keith Allsep, JC Shurburtt. A lot of fun. As always, the College World Series is tonight. We hope you're watching it. Head to jbandgoldwatershow.com for stuff like this. You'll love that as well. Thanks to Darren, as always, and thanks to all of you.
Thank you, man.
We're back tomorrow at noon right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.